Welcome to Minnesota Seed. If you need other professional help or have more questions, you're welcome to check out any of these current CAI lawn care landscape members. Just go to the website www.cai-mn.com, click on Vendor Finder, and you can look up these companies along with some information about each one. When you're on the Vendor Finder, there's also attorneys, accountants, and property management companies. Most of these companies spend their time, talent, and money helping to improve our local chapter and make things better for all town associations here in the state. So we urge you to use their services when they make sense. So seeding, sod versus seed, some brief things. Some benefits of sodding: it's instant, it's much more expensive, you need good watering and cool temps. Seeding, use ryegrass and bluegrass combination, which we'll talk about. It takes about 5 days for the ryegrass to germinate. It takes about 2 weeks before the bluegrass comes up. And it does best with some watering in the spring, and it feathers nicely when some black dirt has been put down. This is Bob Mugas.
This is a typical spot where we've got some dead grass from over the winter or last summer.
It's that time of year again when rakes replace snow shovels, and the University of Minnesota Extension's Bob Mugas is busy giving advice on how to get your lawn ready for summer. Mugas says the first step is covering up the bare spots.
This would be a good rake to scratch up the surface, get some loose soil, and then go ahead and do their seeding.
Using a garden rake, break up the soil. Then, with a small pot,
we're going to actually use this just like a shaker that you would do salt and pepper with.
Shake the seed evenly over the exposed ground.
You don't want some big clumps of seed. You want it pretty well scattered out over the surface.
After gently tamping the seed in place, you're on your way. And not only will overseeding make your lawn look greener, it will help you live greener.
There's an old cliche about a healthy, dense turf is your best weed control. And there's a lot of truth to that, because where the grass plants are growing and taking up the available space, there isn't any room for weeds to begin to grow.
To keep weeds out, homeowners have been using herbicides for decades. But Mugas says those chemicals might not be necessary if the grass doesn't give the weeds any room to start.
The healthier you maintain your lawn, the more grass plants you have taking up that space along the ground, the less chance there is for weeds to invade.
Okay, so what sort of lawn does my association have? So as you can see by the slide here, if your lawn is older than 30 to 35 years, it usually consists of bluegrass called generically Park Kentucky bluegrass. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. If it was established by seeding, it'll have Kentucky bluegrasses, fine leaf fescues, which are included in the mix for shady areas, and perennial ryegrasses. If it's been seeded with premium or elite grass seeds, it'll be mixture. So the three types we've got are bluegrass, which is dark green. It thickens very well. It's got improved varieties, disease resistant, good in sunny areas. You got fine fescue, used for shady areas. I'll explain the round a little bit, and it doesn't really thicken up too well. And ryegrass, which is light green, it's the grass that comes up right away. It's what you see in the patch mixes. Comes up right away, and probably use. Okay, so this is a picture up above about bluegrass. Bluegrass is medium dark to dark green color. That's why it's called bluegrass. It gets that beautiful color to it. It's a regular texture. It's what you normally think of when you think of a lawn. It does do very well in the shade. It does well with wear and tear to a point. The new kinds of bluegrass that you have require a lot more fertilizer and more water than the older Park Kentucky bluegrasses that I mentioned earlier. The old Park Kentucky bluegrasses just a kind of a regular green, but you could fertilize them a lot, water them, but they just wouldn't get very thick, and they just wouldn't get very dark green. And obviously everything's been genetically improved, and so now these new varieties require this. They're a little more disease susceptible to disease problems because they're more high maintenance. I think you do require regular aeration, maybe every other year, and dethatching. You got to watch that too. This is ryegrass. This is just a good picture of it. I'll tell you, this is probably a little bit better. Ryegrass, this is what you see when you get the patches, the patch seed mix. This is what you see if your contractor is seeding along driveways. A lot of times it'll be a 50-50 mix of bluegrass and rye. And the characteristics of ryegrass is it grows in a bunch. So when you plant it, if you look across your association's lawn and you see bunches of grass, the bunches are usually ryegrass, tall fescue, or maybe bent grass. And they kind of stand out from the lawn. They don't look very good. The two distinguishing characteristics of rye is it's a light green grass, more like, well, it's just lighter than the other ones. And I guess there's two other characteristics. One is that one side of the leaf is very shiny, as you can see in the picture, how shiny that side of the grass blade is. And the third thing is there's a rib that runs up the middle of that grass blade on the shiny side. So it's pretty easy to identify ryegrass. The reason you got to be careful with this is a lot of the patch mixes only have annual ryegrass in them because it comes up even faster. So people are amazed. It comes up in 2 or 3 days, and they're like, wow, this is great grass. But the annual ryegrass dies out at the end of the season, and if the bluegrass hasn't taken over, then the following year, the area is going to be bare again. So be careful how much ryegrass is used, and if you do have to use it, try to use perennial rye and just water it for a couple extra days. You'll be happier with it. And here again is another picture of ryegrass. You can see the rib there towards the top of that leaf there in the center left on there. So fine fescue, this is the type of grass that you'll see in a shady mix of seed. It grows well in the shade. It's a little bit darker blue. It doesn't require as much fertilizer or water. As a matter of fact, I don't think it even does as well in high fertility soils. I think it actually performs worse than bluegrass does. I think it likes it a little leaner. The other thing about fine fescue is it's kind of round. If you look at the grass blades there and imagine that those are pine needles, you can see that maybe that's a little bit different than the other grass we're looking at. The thing about fine fescue is, like I said, it grows in the shade. It does thicken up and grow out a little bit if you've got the right kinds. It does have rhizomes. That's the word. It talks about creeping red has rhizomes, but less than Kentucky bluegrass. So it's only going to get just so thick and spread out. But it is shade tolerant, drought tolerant. This is a fine fescue lawn. You can see how deep the shade is, and the fine fescue in this lawn is just gorgeous. And you're going to have to take special care. So when you're talking to your contractor about seeding, if you've got some thin areas, then you might not only be talking about seeding here in the spring, but maybe again in the fall. On these areas, that's when you seed a shaded area so that you get a few weeks of fall time with the leaves down and a lot of sun to help it get started, and then again in the spring with no leaves up, so you kind of give it a head start. The fine fescue can make for a beautiful lawn.